She walked into my house on a Sunday afternoon, carrying a designer handbag that probably cost more than my first car. And within 40 minutes of sitting down at my kitchen table, she asked me to pay for a wedding that would cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. I'm 63 years old. I worked 31 years in commercial insurance, raised my son alone after his mother passed, and I know how to read a room. I knew something was wrong the moment my son Brendan called me Thursday night to confirm dinner. He didn't sound excited. He sounded like a man rehearsing lines. "She's really looking forward to meeting you, Dad," he said. There was a pause, just a half second too long. "Just keep an open mind, okay?" I told him I always do. I hung up and stood in my kitchen for a moment, trying to figure out why that conversation felt like a warning. Her name was Simone. She was 31, 10 years younger than Brendan, and she had the kind of confidence that fills a room before you've decided whether you want it to. She hugged me at the door like we'd met before, complimented my house in that particular way people do when they're appraising something, and sat down at my table with the ease of someone who'd already decided it belonged to her. Brendan sat beside her. He was smiling, but I've known that face since he was 4 years old, crying in the backyard and pretending he wasn't. That wasn't a happy smile. That was a performance smile. I filed it away. We talked through the salad. She told me about her work, event planning, high-end clients, she said. She told me about her family, her parents in Connecticut, old money. She mentioned twice. She was charming in the calculated way of someone who has been charming on purpose for a very long time. I listened more than I talked. That's always been my approach. It was during the main course that she shifted, not dramatically. She didn't slam her hands on the table or make an announcement. She just tilted her head slightly, smiled at me, and said, "I want to talk to you about the wedding." I said that sounded fine. Brendan reached for his water glass. "We've been doing a lot of research," she said, using we the way people do when they mean I. "And to do this the right way. And I think you'd agree. For Brendan's sake, we want to do this right. We're looking at a venue in the Hamptons. Late September, peak season." She pulled out her phone and turned it to face me. It showed a spreadsheet. Color-coded. The venue alone is $400,000. With catering, flowers, the photographer, entertainment, the honeymoon package we've been looking at, we're at about $1.8 million. Rounding up for incidentals, we feel comfortable asking for $2 million. I looked at the spreadsheet. Then I looked at her. Then I looked at my son, who was looking at the table. "We feel comfortable," I said slowly. "It's an investment," she said, "in the beginning of our life together." Brendan's knee knocked mine under the table. Hard, deliberate. I didn't react. I picked up my fork, took a bite, and said, "That's a significant number. Let me think on it." She smiled. "Of course, we don't need an answer today." But she'd expected one. I could tell by the way the smile stayed a moment too long. After dinner, I walked them to the front door. Brendan hugged me, and when he did, I felt him press something into my palm. I closed my fingers around it without looking down. We said our goodbyes. I watched them walk to her car, a leased Mercedes I'd find out later, and I closed the door. I opened my hand. It was a folded cocktail napkin from my kitchen drawer. In Brendan's handwriting, small and cramped like he was trying to take up as little space as possible, "Dad, I need to talk to you alone. She doesn't know I'm doing this. Don't say yes. Please." I sat down on the bottom stair of my own house and read it twice. Then I called him. He didn't answer. I sent one text, "Come over tomorrow morning. Alone." He was at my door at 8:15. He looked like he hadn't slept. I handed him coffee, and we sat at the same table where his fiancée had shown me her spreadsheet 12 hours earlier, and I waited. It took him a few minutes to start. That's always been his way. Brendan thinks before he speaks, which made what had been happening to him over the past 14 months all the more astonishing. He'd met Simone at a work event. She was running the catering side of a corporate gala his firm had hosted, and she'd been impressive. Organized, sharp, good with people. They dated for 3 months before she moved into his apartment in Arlington. He was happy, he said. For a while. The first ask had come 5 months in. Her catering van had broken down. $2,000. He paid it. Then there was a problem with her business license renewal. A fine she hadn't anticipated, she said. $4,000. He paid that too. Then her assistant quit suddenly, and she lost 2 major clients because she couldn't staff the events alone, and she needed capital to hire someone and keep the business afloat. $8,000. He paid. There were 6 more asks after that, spread over 8 months, each one carrying a reasonable explanation, each one slightly larger than the last. The emergency dental work that her insurance supposedly didn't cover. The deposit on a new commercial kitchen space she was renting. The legal retainer for a contract dispute with a venue that had allegedly stiffed her on payment. Every single one had a story. Every single one had a story. Every single one came with some version of, "I'll pay you back when this settles, I promise." Sitting across from me at my kitchen table, Brendan put his hands around his coffee mug and said, "I added it up 2 weeks ago. $47,000, Dad. In 14 months. I didn't say anything. And I haven't seen $1 back." He looked up. "And now the wedding." "Has she shown you her business financials?" I asked. He laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. "Every time I ask, there's a reason it's not a good time. The accountant is behind. She's switching bookkeepers. She'll show me next month." He shook his head. "There's always a next month." "Does she actually have clients right now?" I asked. He paused. "I'd never met one. She takes calls sometimes, talks about meetings, but I've never seen an invoice, never been to an event she's running." I looked at my son, 41 years old, smart enough to build a career in financial analysis, sitting at my table looking embarrassed and exhausted and relieved all at once. I understood the relief. He'd been holding this alone. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" I asked. "Because I was embarrassed," he said simply, "and because I kept thinking I was wrong, that I was being paranoid. She's very good at making you feel like the problem is your suspicious mind." That's a specific skill, I thought. Not everyone knows how to do that instinctively. You learn it. "Are you still in love with her?" I asked. He thought about it longer than a man should have to. "I don't know who she is," he finally said. I thought I did. I told him not to go back home yet. I asked him to stay at my place for a few days. He could tell Simone he was helping me with some work on the house, which wasn't entirely untrue because I'd been meaning to replace 2 boards on the back deck. He agreed. I think he was relieved to have somewhere to go that felt safe. I spent the next 4 days making phone calls. I have a friend, Philip, who retired 2 years ago from a career in financial fraud investigation with the FBI field office in Baltimore. We go back 30 years. We were in the same community softball league back when we both had knees that cooperated. I called him the morning after Brendan told me everything. "Tell me what you've got," Philip said. I told him. He was quiet for a moment. "You said event planning?" "Yes." "Does she have a business license?" "Brendan thinks so, but he's never actually seen it." "Okay," Philip said. "Give me a couple days." He called back on Wednesday. "Your son's fiancée has a business license registered in Virginia," he said. "Issued 18 months ago. No prior business history in her name. Before that, I found 2 civil judgments against her in Connecticut going back 7 years. One from a former employer alleging embezzlement, settled out of court, and one from a private individual for unpaid personal loan. $6,000 ruled in the plaintiff's favor." He paused. "She also used a slightly different last name spelling on the Connecticut filings, Olivier instead of Oliver." My chest got tight. "There's more," Philip said. "I found a pattern that looks familiar. The business license was open right around the time she likely met your son. The license gives her professional legitimacy. It's a prop, essentially. No established client history, no reviews under her business name, no social proof of any actual events. It has the appearance of a business without the substance of one." "You're telling me this is what she does," I said. "I'm telling you this looks very similar to a pattern I've seen before," he said carefully. "I'm not an active investigator and this isn't a formal case. But if I were still working, this is the kind of profile that would get my attention." I thanked him. I sat with what he told me and I thought about my son, who had worked hard his whole life and never asked me for anything he didn't earn, sitting across from me looking ashamed of something that wasn't his fault. I called Simone. She answered on the second ring, with the same warmth she brought to my table Sunday. I told her I'd been thinking about the wedding and I wanted to talk more. I suggested she come by Saturday morning, without Brendan, I said, because I wanted to surprise him with some of my contributions, and I didn't want him to hear the numbers ahead of time. She didn't hesitate for even a second. I love that, she said. He is so lucky to have you. Saturday morning, she came at 10. I had coffee ready, the good kind, and I let her get comfortable before I opened the folder on the kitchen table. Inside it was everything Philip had found. The 2 civil judgments, the name variation, a timeline I had reconstructed from the dates Brendan had given me, matched against the registration date of her business, a printed copy of her business license with the issue date highlighted. I pushed the folder across to her. She looked at it. Her face didn't crumble the way you might expect. It went very still. That stillness told me more than any expression would have. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is what it says." She tried 3 things in quick succession. First, she said the judgments were from a misunderstanding with a former employer who had it out for her. Then she said the name variation was a clerical error when she got married briefly in her 20s, a marriage she'd never mentioned to Brendan. Then she said I was trying to sabotage my son's happiness because I couldn't let go of him. I let her finish each one. Then I said, "Brendan has given you $47,000. I'd like it returned. All of it." She looked at me. The warmth was completely gone now. "I don't know what he's told you," she started. "I have his bank records," I said. "I did. He'd shown me everything on his phone Wednesday night. I have the dates and amounts of every transfer. $47,320 over 14 months. I'd like it returned within 30 days. And I'd like you to end your engagement to my son." "Or what?" she said. Her voice had a different quality now, flat, testing. "Or I take everything in this folder to the Arlington County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office and request they open a fraud investigation," I said. "I also contact the individuals who filed the civil judgments in Connecticut and offer to provide them with your current location and contact information in case they have interest in any further legal action." She left without finishing her coffee. She didn't say goodbye. 3 days later, Brendan got a Venmo transfer for $47,320, sent in 3 separate transactions within an hour of each other. No note. No message. She had the money. She'd had it the whole time. He called me when he saw it. There was a long silence on the phone, the kind where someone is trying to figure out what they're feeling. "She had it," he said. "Yes," I said. "The whole time?" "Probably." Another silence. "Did you threaten her?" "I told her the legal options I was prepared to pursue," I said. He was quiet for a moment, then softly, "Thank you, Dad." He broke off the engagement that week. She didn't fight it. She was already gone, moved out of his apartment while he was at work on Tuesday, took her things and the coffee maker she'd bought with his money and the throw blanket from his couch that he'd given her as an anniversary gift. She left his spare key on the kitchen counter. 2 months later, Philip called me. "Your hunch was right," he said. "I flagged your pattern to a contact at the Virginia AG's office. Turns out your son wasn't the first. They've identified at least 2 other men in the past 5 years who lost similar amounts. They're building something." I didn't ask for details. That wasn't my lane anymore. I'd done what I needed to do for my son. The rest was for the courts. Brendan is doing better now. He's back at work, back in his apartment, and last month he called me on a Wednesday afternoon just to talk. No crisis, no problem, just to talk. That call mattered to me more than I can explain. We talked for an hour about nothing important. His fantasy football team, a documentary he'd watched, a new coffee place near his office, an hour of ordinary life. At the end of the call, he said, "I keep thinking about how I missed it." "You didn't miss it," I told him. "You saw it. That's why you wrote that note." He didn't say anything for a moment. "You're right," he said. "I guess I did." There's a specific kind of hurt that comes from realizing someone who said they loved you was building a budget while they were doing it. It doesn't heal fast. Brendan's going to carry some of that for a while, and there's nothing I can do about the carrying part. But I can be available. I can answer when he calls. I can be at the table when he needs to talk. That's the part of parenting nobody tells you about when you're young. It doesn't end when they move out. It doesn't end at all. It just changes shape. Whatever shape it takes, I'll be here. I've been thinking about the folder I put together. The civil judgments, the name variation, the timeline, and what it actually took to build it. Not the phone calls. Not Philip's help. What it took on the inside. Because the truth is, the easiest thing in the world would have been to write the check. $2 million was not something I had sitting idle, but I'm not a poor man. I could have found a way. And there was a moment, right there at my kitchen table with Simone's color-coded spreadsheet turned toward me, when I thought about how much simpler it would be to just say yes and hope for the best. That moment lasted about 3 seconds. Then Brendan's knee hit mine under the table, and I remembered that doing the easy thing and doing the right thing are almost never the same thing. Simone made a calculation. She looked at a 63-year-old man who loves his son and decided that love was a weakness she could price. That's the part that stays with me, not the anger, not even the $47,000 she'd already taken from Brendan. It's that she studied him. She figured out what he cared about and she used it. That's not impulsive behavior. That's a system. And systems like that only keep running because the people on the receiving end of them feel too ashamed or too confused to push back. Brendan was neither stupid nor weak. He's one of the sharper people I know. But she was very good at what she did. And what she did was make a careful, intelligent man doubt his own judgment every time it pointed in the right direction. That's a specific kind of damage. It takes time to undo. The fact that he wrote that note, folded it up, and pressed it into my hand anyway, that took something real. That took a man who hadn't completely lost himself yet, reaching back towards solid ground. What I keep coming back to is this. The truth has a way of holding its shape. You can build a story on top of it, layer it over with charm and explanations and convenient timing, but the truth underneath doesn't change. Philip found it in 2 days. It had been there the whole time, waiting. Every dollar Simone took, every lie she told, every delay and deflection, all of it left a record. Not because someone was watching, just because that's how things work. Actions have weight. They don't disappear. I didn't set out to teach Brendan anything through this. I just wanted to get my son back. But if there's something I hope he carries forward, it's that asking for help when you're in over your head isn't a failure of strength. It's actually the clearest sign of it. Knowing what you can handle alone and trusting someone enough to say so requires more courage than most people give it credit for. He called me last week. We talked for an hour about nothing. His fantasy football picks, a coffee place near his office, normal life slowly coming back. That call was worth more to me than anything else in this story.